So, a while back, before Season 4 even came out, I did a video where I ranked my top 10 favorite characters. And since most of those characters were heroes in the story of Welcome to the Show, it was suggested to me during the Soul Calibur live stream that I should do a villains ranking video. And so, yeah, here I am to rank some villains. And so some things about this list. I am doing the most villains that I felt like I could, while not reaching too far. So, like, I'm not going to be including any monsters or animals. Like, so no, no Minotaur, no Kraken, no Tarrasque. Those were just sort of acting as they normally would. They weren't out to get the party, or the party didn't offend them anyway, and thus they attacked, or they weren't doing anything evil, and that's why the party decided to go after them. So, like, yeah, they don't count. And then for the archdevils of Bator, I'm only counting the one that the party actively fought against. So Bel, Despater, Fierna, Levistus, Glacia, and Mephistopheles, they don't count. The only archdevils that I am counting are Mamonde, Belial, Balzabul, and Asmodeus. So, okay, so those little, I guess, ground rules, I'd call them, out of the way. Let's jump into the list.
22. Quintal Perixx.
Quintal Perixx is the only villain I honestly do not like in Welcome to the Show, because the build-up he got from the other citizens of Ribcage talking about him didn't really make him seem all that intimidating. So between them mentioning him and then us meeting him in his office, I honestly kind of forgot about him. And then when he did show up, his fight just went on and on and on and on. And yes, it did bring us the amazing T. Rose Rules of Nature save, but for the most part of the fight, it was just the party trying and failing to do most of the things that they wanted to do, and Ravus and Perixx being the only ones doing something. And I honestly can't really tell you much about who he was, other than he was the mayor of Ribcage. He was hard to beat. His death allowed the party to enter Bator. That's about all I got. And after he died, the party didn't, like, he's never really been brought up again in story. The most he's been mentioned since chapter 21 is out of character jokes about how hard his encounter was. And yeah, it's just like, it's just he's just a villain that's just like, this is the guy that almost took out the party, and no one knows it, and no one cares about him. That's probably like the biggest reason as to why I don't like him, is because no one cares about him. Yeah, he's the one that came the closest to actually offing the entire party. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on Quintal Perixx.
21. Frostwind Virago.
The Frostwind Virago isn't a bad villain, but she's far from the more memorable villains of Welcome to the Show. Also, and it's just, really, all she did was lure Simula's half of the party to a fortress with deadly puzzles, and then attack them when no one agreed to mate with her. In the long run, I feel like the most she brings to the table is A, being a threat that is posed to the party so Simula can give Cross the enchanted bow, and then B, being someone that threatens Amber so Virag can save her from, in order for the party not to just have immediate distrust flags when Virag came in. So it's like, hey, I'm your father. And yeah, that's about it. That's all the Frostwind Virago really brought to the table.
20. The Shadow.
Like the Frostwind Barago, the Shadow isn't a bad villain, but they're just a one-and-done villain, there to serve a purpose, and then they're gone. Forgotten about, mostly. The reasons I put the Shadow over the Frostwind Barago, though, are mostly because, in terms of the fight with the Frostwind Barago, if the party had decided to flee from the fight, just being like, you know what, this isn't worth my time, let's just go, the worst that would happen is they still wouldn't have no idea of where to go, because Frog wouldn't have found them in her fortress. But he probably would have found them sooner or later, so that problem really wouldn't have lasted all that long. But if the party had decided to just be like, you know what, this fight isn't worth it, we don't need to fight this shadow guy, well, then they would not have secured their alliance with the Elven Council, and so they would be that much weaker against Directian. So the fight with the Shadow, I feel, has a lot higher stakes than the fight with the Frostwind Barago. And then also, the fight with the Shadow is just a lot more entertaining. I mean, it had Michael Jackson music in it, and had Amber killing it by falling on top of it.
19. Mamonde.
Mamonde is another villain that kind of just fills the slot for the encounter of the chapter, and yeah, that's about all to them. But I mentioned with the Shadow that about the difference in stakes, and when it comes to Mamonde, fleeing isn't really an option, because if they fled, then they wouldn't be able to rely on Mamonde at all for a Styx coin, and then Hana would be absolutely livid with all of them, because they'd be abandoning their promise to her to help her find Arkoth. Which brings me to my next point about Mamonde. He single-handedly bested Arkoth. Arkoth, the greatest thing that has ever blessed any form of existence, was bested single-handedly by this guy. When Mamonde mentioned that he had already taken care of the Spectre, my fear for his capabilities and that the party could actually beat him shot straight up. And then the encounter with Mamonde was pretty entertaining too, with especially the very end of the fight when Rose and Ivan made his gold disappear and had him flee from the fight because of it. So yeah, all around, Mamonde, it's alright. He's alright.
18. Grimmjow.
Grimmjow is probably the most short-lived villain on this list because, well, the only episode he was in was The Doubting, and his time to shine was cut short by Simula, so yeah. But the time he did have, he did make a small impact on the party by sowing seeds of distrust in a group that didn't have much trust to begin with at this point in the story. But the main thing that made the other party members question Jaminia mostly was when he said that as a werewolf, she could not be on the throne of Directian. But then Jaminia was revealed to actually be a tiefling and not a werewolf, so while he did have some impact on the party, it didn't last beyond season 1 at all. And so, yeah, he falls on the shorter end of this list. And yeah, that's really all I gotta say about Grimmjow. He was here, said some words, and then he got killed.
17. Balzabul.
Originally, I had Balzabul a lot higher on this list, but then I realized I was mostly ranking him based off of his encounter and how awesome that was, and the fight is still a factor in his placement on the list. But when I started looking outside the fight, I realized Balzabul's not the most interesting guy. I mean, the fact that he was cursed by Asborn and is, doing the things he does to Hana as a result of that is pretty interesting, but isn't really built upon that much, mostly because when we find out that he's doing that, the focus just must protect Hana at all cost. And so, yeah, then we jump straight into the encounter. But, yeah, I mean, he's got potential, but he just wasn't allowed the time to really get fleshed out that much. And, yeah, but hey, that encounter, still so good. I love going back to that session because, oh man, oh man, it's so good.
16. Belial.
And now going up a few layers, we have the Archduke of Legathos himself. And while I do like the encounter with Balzabul more than Belial, I put Belial higher on the list because, well, we just simply got to know Belial more than Balzabul. I mean, we didn't get to know him on the same levels as, like, Glazia, but, I mean, still definitely more than Balzabul. We see him in what he would be doing in his day-to-day life, being a cruel but fair judge in Bator, and I believe he's the main judge of Bator, too, outside of probably Azzy himself. And then, when we go meet him in his office, then we, of course, get him saying about how he is very unhappy with the current arrangement of him and his daughter Fierna being on the same power level, and how he wants the party to make her submit more to him. Which brings me to what I think is my main point for having Belial as high as I do on my list. Just the utter disdain and anger that Faye had for Belial after he offered that deal to them. The way, like, how she spoke about Belial and comparing him to Eimer, that anger, I don't know about everyone else, but that anger rubbed off on me. And so when the time came for the encounter, I was like, yeah, let's go, let's beat this guy, and just enjoyed every second of the party, just beating the ever snot out of him. And yeah, like, so yeah, that's about all I gotta say about Belial, and yeah, moving on.
15. General Krister.
So now that I've talked about all the villains I think are decent to alright on the list, let's start getting into ones that I think are pretty dang good. Starting off with General Krister. When we first meet Krister, it isn't through people saying how scary or evil or unbeatable he is, like with the Shadow or Mamonde. It's by meeting him, running into him, weeping and sobbing, and thanks to Jalrum Spotcheck, we also get to see the report about his son dying, which is just automatically makes you more sympathetic to him than any of the villains I've already talked about. And then when he eventually attacks the orphanage, I mean, yeah, it's awful, hence, you know, why he's on the villains list, but he's just trying to avenge his son, and yeah, he's going about it the worst way possible, but I feel like wanting that, you know, avenging the avenging of your offspring is just something that most everyone could probably relate to, even if they don't have children of their own, just avenging a loved one. And so yeah, I really wanted him to make it out because I did feel for him, but knew he probably wasn't going to. Which brings me to, yeah, him taking the coward's way out. It did make him lose some points for me, but even though it was the coward's way out, you gotta admit, as far as coward's ways goes, impaling yourself through the neck with a sword that someone else is holding, that's a pretty hardcore way to go, and so that gave him those points back for me.
14. The Mummy Lord.
Can we please get a return of this guy? Please? I mean, Jim is sanctified, Simula's the goddess of the drow, the she-devils have changed. It is no longer too soon, he can say. Come on, I really want to know. Honestly, I wasn't too impressed with this guy at first, because when we first saw him and then fought him, the encounter really wasn't anything that special, and it was just sort of, we are doing this thing because Arden said so, there weren't that many stakes in it. But then, after they beat him, and Jalarum had that little exchange with him in Dark House Silent, my interest in this guy went from low to very high. Ever since he kept answering, "It is too soon, I cannot say," to almost every question that Jalarum asked him, I wanted so badly to go back and find the answers, find out why it is too, what this information that he has for the party is, and why it couldn't wait until Simula and Jaminia changed. That little encounter was a brief, not the fighting encounter, but the exchange, the Darfell silent stage. It was small. It didn't even last that long, but oh my god, it's so good. I just want to see him again. I cannot express enough how much I want the party to go back to Urzaban and talk to this guy.
13. Joule.
Joule is the first of many drow we will talk about on this list, and being the first of many, yes, that does mean that Joule is my least favorite member of Venom, but that doesn't mean I think she's a bad villain at all. She's just, on the list of those characters, she happens to fall at the bottom. Now, even before we knew about the Drow's involvement in the war, I had my suspicions that there was a third party pulling strings behind the backs of Directian and Sabaton, and that one of the members of Phoenix Squadron, no, that's Star Wars, Phoenix Ward, okay, there we go. Phoenix Ward was a member of this third faction, and yeah, it turns out I was right. I thought it was going to be Kylam, but no, it turned out to be Verena. And dang, Joule, talk about a dramatic reveal. I mean, burning most of the buildings in Sabaton and then bringing in freaking beholders? You made it known you're not a nice person. We got the picture, Joule. Thank you very much. And I honestly really wish that we had gotten more time to get to know Verena before the reveal happened, because when Rhyme used power word kill on her, I didn't really feel anything, and then after Joule was brought back, I was hoping we'd get a lot more from her, but then after being revived, all that really happened was she testified with false memories, and then she lost another fight to Rhyme, and now she's a frog. So while I do still enjoy seeing Joule cause mayhem for the party, I am still waiting for her to do something big and worthwhile to make me really, really love her character, and she just hasn't done that for me yet.
12. Barska.
And now we have Barska, my absolute favorite of the one and done villains, and welcome to the show. The main reason why Barska is my favorite of these one-time villains is just because his debate with Rose about the awfulness of humanoids and the hypocrisy of the druids is honestly my favorite thing in the entire series for Rose's character. And not only that, but there was a good amount of mystery leading up to the party meeting Barska, with how Arden told about how great the forest outside NASA was, only for them to arrive there and see that the forest had destroyed and overtaken the city, and then that all the animals inside, the wolves, the eagles, and even the squirrels, were just extremely hostile and resentful of all non-animal and plant life. And how can I talk about how awesome Barska is without mentioning the fact that his encounter brought mother-flipping T-Rexes into the story, allowing Tyrannosaurus Rose to be her signature transformation, and then the fact that he was defeated by summoned T-Rexes just ganging up on him, and yes. Thank you, Barska. Thank you for bringing T-Rexes into Welcome to the Show. Thank you.
11. Cruel.
Cruel is easily the member of Venom that I'm the most interested to learn more about. In fact, I'm so intrigued by this guy, I even ended up making a theory video all about this guy's possible origins. Even though it was a video that got easily and quickly debunked. I'm not salty, you're salty. But with the fact that he doesn't talk really at all, despite the fact that he isn't a mute, his ridiculous elongated man arms, his immense and incredible strength, and just the question of how freaking mutated is this guy just always make his fight scenes so gosh darn entertaining. But the fact that I am really intrigued about him is also means that we don't know that much about him right now, which is probably the biggest reason that he falls below most of the other members of Venom.
10. Valor.
Whew, talk about a villain whose main thing he has going for him is his ability to just paralyze viewers and players with fear by walking. From the first time we even ever heard his footsteps before the party entered the labyrinth, it was very clear this was not someone we wanted to make angry. And that fear that he just incites with his very presence is the main factor that caused him to become one of the villains on this list that's a part of the I Killed a Party Member club. And yeah, because him scaring Amber to accidentally get out into the open, and then Jim going out to help her, is what caused her death. Well, that and the party doing absolutely nothing to help, but, you know, that's more Glazia's ranting territory. And then the death of Jaminia, while yes, she came back, it still caused so much needless tension and friction between party members that lasted a good while until Joule just sat them all down and gave them quite the talking to on the way to Galgari. And then when the Balor came back in Season 2, the fight with him was not only the final step that convinced Orkroom to join the coalition, but was also the first time we saw Owen's banishment spell, and oh my gosh, that scene was just so freaking cool. You're just, oh my gosh. And even though they defeated the Balor and now have demigod powers against demons, I'm pretty sure they'd all still shake in their skin if they ever heard, I see you.
9. Ivana.
Ivana. Oh, despicable Ivana. You made it look like Arkoth wasn't a good boy anymore. You are the worst scum in all of Alatastica. First, you capture Faye and send the whole party into a panic until they get her back. Then, you literally rip her apart limb from limb. Then you make it seem like her dad's back and try and brainwash her into joining the Drow. And then you do the blasphemy I mentioned earlier. And then when your sick, twisted plan failed, now you've decided you're going to kill her family. So, I'm recording this right now between the episodes An Obstacle Overcome and whatever tomorrow's episode is titled. So I do not know how the encounter with Ivana is gonna go, but oh, I hope that they add you to the Rhymes Frog collection. I really, really do. And yeah, that's about how I feel about Ivana. I feel very strongly against her, which means she was effective, which is why she's this high on the list.
8. Belial.
Belial has something in common with Ravus that no other member of Venom has. He betrayed us. Because, just like Ravus, we knew Belial and fought beside Belial before any of the revelations about the Drow conspiracy came to light. Which makes his showing up in Sabaton and near successful sabotage of the party's mission and name there just, can we punch some more teeth out, please? Can we just, oh man. But then the next time we see Belial after Sabaton was on Autumnfire Island, when he was with the rest of Venom as a part of the whole magic FaceTime thingy. And we saw something I wasn't expecting from Belial. Something that makes him more than Ravus's musical minion. The worry and fear he had in his eyes when he looked at the child from Gatlas, I can just tell you, I've seen many people saying that they think because of that Belial's gonna get some type of redemption in Season 4, and while I honestly feel like his loyalties to Venom and Ravus are stronger than the worries he had for that child, so I don't think he's gonna get that redemption, it does just add a lot more depth to his character than what I initially thought was there. So yeah, it really makes me want to see more from Belial, and I'm not saying I don't want Belial to reform and seek redemption. If he did, I think that'd be really, really interesting. I would be all for that. I just personally don't think that is going to happen. But like I said, yeah, would totally be down for it to actually happen if it does.
7. Lille.
Now, technically, yes, you can say that Lilith is a one-and-done villain, as the first time we see her is in Cania, and then that's also the chapter where she done goofed. But I would strongly disagree with that statement, as mostly just because of how much of a motivator Lilith was for Ravus in the first 9 chapters of Season 3. Ravus talking about how difficult life was as a drow under Lilith and her matriarchs just made me want to see him succeed in his quest to kill her more and more with every new piece of information he gave about drow society. And then we have the fact that Lilith is the villain that killed Rose. I mean, not directly, so she doesn't get to join Arkoth, Ravus, and the Balor in the I've killed a party member club, but it was her retrievers that turned her to stone and caused her to, well, become brain dead. So yeah, it's her fault, even if you want to argue how much it's Owen's fault because she only sent the retrievers because he put Ravus to sleep, or it's Ravus's fault because he's the reason the party is in Bator to begin with. But at the end of the day, it was Lilith's retriever, so it's Lilith's fault. And how can I talk about Lilith in Welcome to the Show without mentioning the Spider Queen lore video, which lays out the backstory of Lilith, about her past, her children, and her marriage to Corellin, and how she fell from grace and became what she is now, and then laid out what is more important to me because of how many times I went through them between the episodes Deception and Liberation, the games of Lilith, which even though there's no reason to go back there, because go back to those in terms of like making theories like I did between those two episodes, I still go back because they're really interesting to hear about to me, and yeah. And then when we finally do meet Lilith on Cania, she was just as despicable as Ravis and the Spider Queen video made her out to be, if not more so, actually, and it just made it so satisfying to see Simula and Ravis take her down. Once I recovered from the shock of everything that was going on, of course.
And the only thing we're guilty of is we're just Eimer.
Now, we only heard about Jalrom's daddy issues with Thaden, but we got to see in full force what Faye's relationship with Eimer was like when we met him in the Ziggurat. The way he just talked down to Faye as a pet, and how he was so confident he'd have her back in her little bird cage by the end of the day, just really made him just put a full force smashing on the "you do not like me" button. And then being responsible for the Chassis's nightmares by, having the nightmare beast there wasn't really helping his likability points in his first appearance, which, was pretty much the point, so good job. And then when he came back in season 2, I guess he didn't think that he was hitting Faye on a personal level enough, because then he kidnapped her mom, and I don't know about everyone else, but when, I believe it was Philanus who said it, so when Philanus informed everyone that Yurlissa had been kidnapped, I was legitimately convinced that Eimer was going to kill her in front of the party. I was so scared for Yurlissa. I was on the edge of my seat for the entirety of Eimer's second fight. And then when Eimer finally died at the end of the encounter in season 2, I thought I'd be like, yeah, let's go! Let's kill that guy! But the way Faye reached out to him, wanting him to change his ways before Amber dealt the blow, and how she mentioned that she was glad he was not dead because he was still her father before the encounter, made the moment very bittersweet, and made it even more bittersweet afterwards when we had the funeral for Eimer, and then later down the line when what I believe is the biggest reason Eimer is as high as he is on this list, the Little Songbird lore video. That lore video just laid out completely how disgusting of a person Eimer was, by how he just discarded his own daughter as nothing, and it was like, oh, I can use her as a tool, not love her as my daughter, but use her as a tool to my own means. It's just, we always heard Faye talk about how her father used her, and then we actually got to see it, and just makes me have even stronger feelings for Eimer, and yeah.
By Thorn.
Well, if you watched my reactions, you knew this guy was going to be high on my list. Besides their fearless leader, Thorn is my absolute favorite member of Venom, and I think it's mostly because out of all the individual rivalries between the heroes in Directian and Venom, the rivalry of Jalrom v. Thorn is easily the most personal. Faye and Ivana do indeed have personal beef, but really only after Ivana tortured Faye. Then Ivan and Belial don't really seem to have any strong personal hatred towards one another. Rhyme might feel slightly betrayed by Joule, but I think she's more angry with her about the whole poisoning Ziadril thing than the Verena thing. And then Amber and Cruel don't really have any personal beef at all. But in the case of Thorn and Jalarum, by killing Albus Windbreath, caused a chain of events that ended up in the death of Thorn's beloved mother, causing him to end up on the streets with the Belial. And then Thorn is the one who murdered Eleanor Gilrin, and then the rest of the Daggers of Light, and every member of the Dishonor Brigade except for Murphy, Sylvester, and Jalarum himself. And this all happened before the Drow conspiracy even ever came into light. This is a rivalry of two people trying to avenge their mothers, and I just love it. It's so good. It's so good. And then there's the mystery of who Thorn was that went on for a while, which is a mystery that actually started before we even ever first saw Thorn, because it didn't start with his fight with Jalarum and Nora. It started in the labyrinth when Enzio took Jalarum through his mother's murder case. I personally was in the camp that thought Thorn was gonna end up being Waltsum, but then when Jalarum visited his mother's grave for a second time, and Thorn, I don't want to say they encountered Thorn there. I mean, Thorn was there and was, messing with them, but they didn't fight. He just sort of threw letters at them. And, but yeah, it was revealed there that he was in fact not Waltsum, and then after that, I had no idea who he would be. I kept trying to write my, it's like, it's not going to be Eimer, it's not going to be Thade, and that just doesn't make sense. I was like, ah! And then the reveal that he's actually a Windbreath was, I wasn't a big fan of it at first, honestly. It was a bit underwhelming, but it's also kind of like the final fight between Maul and Kenobi. Wasn't a big fan at first, but then the more I think about it, the more I love it. And I just cannot wait to see what happens next for this rivalry and how it all is gonna end. Oh man, especially, like, is Nora gonna end up coming back and help Jalarum, or did Thorn? Oh my god, I love this guy so much!
And the only thing we're guilty of is we're just good at being bad.
So, if you've been able to keep up with who has and who has not been mentioned yet, then you've probably realized that my top 4 is the top 4 big bads. And so before I get to them, I'm going to do a few honorable mentions. First off being Xelnis, because, he was going to be Rose's counterpart in Venom until they both died. And Zaylin, who is most likely Owen's counterpart in Venom, and also most likely Dreamrayan. And then I also want to mention Carlton, because, well, yes, he's our ally and friend now. The first time we met him, he attacked us and ordered his men to do so too, so, felt like that should get a mention. And then finally I wanted to talk about Simula's assassin, the one that held a dagger to Geminia's throat outside of the caves, and the one that kidnapped Cross and was killed by Jalen. I just felt like I should mention him, but I really didn't have much to say about him, so I didn't end up putting him on the list, and yeah, that's about all the honorable mentions I wanted to talk about. 4. Asmodeus. Man, I freaking love this guy. Yes, he was the big bad of Season 3, and I was rooting for the party to somehow best him, and yes, I do despise him for torturing Jem for 13 years. But every time this guy opens his mouth, I'm just completely encapsulated by everything he says. Hearing him speak his mind, like his rant to Jalarum about the other gods when they play chess, or him talking about his grievances with the idea of redemption when he spoke with Rhyme, just make me just want to hear his viewpoints on literally every topic that exists, because he just plays everything out on the table so well, and I believe everything he says, that he believes this to be true, and he convinces me sometimes too. Like when he played chess with John, I'm like, yeah, screw the gods. I'm not going to go into his talk with Rhyme. He didn't really convince me there because Arkoth is good boy. And even though he was Season 3's big bad, he's still a major threat. And that's something that none of the other big bads have been able to keep after their time as the big bad, because after Arkoth was the big bad, he joined the party and for a time until, he had to go to heaven. And then Simula just sort of became their travel guide in Bator, and now she doesn't really want anything to do with the party. But not Big Red. Big Red, he's still very much messing with our favorite heroes. And if Jalarum's theory is right about his plans for Amber's special favor and Karsus's avatar, then he is still at big bad threat level, even if Ravas is fulfilling the role of Season 4's big bad. And that brings me to something else that sets Asmodeus apart from the other big bads. He won. Yes, the party got Jim and Hana out without Asmodeus being able to have a claim over them anymore, but they had to do that on his terms. They had to play his game. At the end of the day, he got favors and information out of it. He's the one who benefits from Season 3's finale. 3. Simula. Simi, Princess Simula Malum, Goddess of the Drow. You are the only big bad to have their big bad status last more than a single season, as it wasn't until the 3rd chapter of Season 3 that the mantle got passed on to Arkoth, and then when Arkoth died in Chapter 19, well, Simula took it back for the remainder of Season 2. I have so many mixed feelings about this woman. She does things like teleport Hana out of her womb, or frame the party for killing the Queen of Optimar, and I just want Rhyme and Amber to kill her 10 times over, just go all out, each. And then there are moments that just make me look at someone like, oh man, I love her. Like when she did the whole "you done goofed," or her general trolling of everyone in the party during Season 2, or when she spoke out against the BS of the older twin actually counting as an older sibling because it was only 1 minute. Stop telling people that you're my big sister, Virginia. It was just one measly minute. Simula has been here from the very beginning of the story. In fact, she's the reason we have a story to begin with. And ever since the beginning, I've had this. Every single action she's done has either given me this, oh, I hate her, or oh man, I love her reaction. And I honestly really enjoy that because it keeps me guessing about Simula, and it makes me both really excited and really worried whenever she comes on screen. And if Big Red's question to the party in Lefethur is any indication, then we have not seen the last of Simula yet. And I'm really hoping she does show back up again in Season 4, because Welcome to the Show is her story. The things what we see is something that she set in motion. Especially in Seasons 1 and 2, when she had just such a direct hand, everything that happened was because of her. And though she hasn't had as direct of a hand in things since Season 2, it just wouldn't be Welcome to the Show without her pulling strings behind the back, without us knowing, only to reveal herself at the last second and be like, look at how brilliant I am at creating this. Gosh, please, I do really hope Simula comes back. 2. Arkoth. I'm sorry, Arkoff. I was only able to look at you from seasons 1 and 2. I couldn't take into account your amazing, incredible, and perfect redemption arc. And because of it, you fall to the number 2 spot on my list. You're still my favorite character, but you had to fall this far from the villains list. But even when looking at only seasons 1 and 2 for Arkoff, I still really love Arkoff. Arkoff was the first villain that we ever met in the show, and man, even after just chapter 1, a lot of people hated him, especially the party themselves, but I, as a viewer, never hated Arkoff. I was always like, oh man, how far is he gonna go next? What's he gonna do next? I was always like, yeah, what he was doing was awful, but I was always so intrigued by him, just wanting to see what would happen next. Even when he made Visitov, I was like, oh my gosh, that's horrible. So what's next? It's like, literally, I just kept wanting to see where he would go, what would happen next. I wanted to see more and more and more of Arkoff, always. And then, a big part of why Arkoff is so high up on my villains list wasn't even him. It was Owen. Yeah, I'm talking about the Nightmares, which I debated with myself back and forth on whether or not I should include them for when deciding where to place Arkoff on my list. I mean, because on one point it was Owen, not Arkoff, so he shouldn't get the credit for it. But on the other hand, Owen used Arkoff because in just chapter 1, he made them feel so uncomfortable and so scared every time his name was mentioned, or he was in the room, or just anything about him. And then the Nightmares made their hatred for Arkoff and their fear of Arkoff just grow and rise. And even when they learned that it wasn't Arkoff, that hatred and fear didn't really go away for Arkoff. So I feel like they should count. And so yeah, I do count the Nightmares as being going towards Arkoff's villainy in seasons 1 and 2, because yeah, Owen was playing Arkoff very well. It convinced everyone, and so yeah, it's just, yeah. But the Nightmares isn't the only thing that makes Arkoff such a good villain. Like I said, I never hated Arkoff. I never detested him. He reveled in his work, and he took so much pride in the awful things he did, and I was always like, yeah, man, you go. I know I shouldn't have, because he was doing awful things, but I just enjoyed how much he was enjoying his evil works, and I can't really explain it. I just loved it. And let's not forget about how, because by him killing Jalaram, we got introduced to the way Welcome to the Show handles character deaths by, sending them to the library, and then, getting transported back when they get revived and having a talk with Ozzy Osbourne. And, also the fact that he killed one of Alatasika's greatest heroes by saying one single word. How is he not everyone's favorite everything? I mean, he's just so cool.
1. Ravos.
Yes. While Arkoff is my favorite character, the title of my favorite villain goes to the Scorpion King, Ravos Arcanine. I hate Ravos. I hate him so much, and that's why he's my favorite. There have been villains that I've already talked about on this list that could fall into the love to hate category of villains, but never, in all the stories I read, watched, and played, has a villain personified the love to hate type of villain more than Ravos Arcanine does. And I didn't count Arkoff's Season 3 story because he wasn't a villain in Season 3, but I do count Ravos' Season 3 story because he was still a villain in season 3. We just didn't know it yet. The whole reason he took the party into Bator was, yes, to kill Loth, but also to keep them out of Alatastica for a decade so that Venom could carry out his plans. And it was the whole thing, the whole trip for him was 2 birds, 1 stone. And that is brilliant. And I hate him for being so brilliant because it's Ravus. He betrayed all of us. He's the reason Welcome to the Show fandom has a salt factory. And it's because everything Ravus does makes us all feel so strongly, whether it's making a hypocritical statement at a council meeting or ordering the death of an innocent child. And that scene with the children makes me bring up another point of why Ravus is my favorite, and it's something that also holds true for Big Red, but I wanted to save talking about it for Ravus. I love lawful evil characters, or lawful evil villains, because I myself am a very lawful person, but seeing people do these terrible things, but do so within a code they've set up for themselves, and just like always seeing the different codes different lawful evil people will make for themselves, because lawful good, normally all lawful good characters have a very similar code, but there can be a lot of differences in lawful evil codes, what some will do and what some won't do, even though they're all trying to accomplish their selfish needs. And the best part about lawful evil characters is seeing what they do when their code conflicts with what they want, and if they abide by the code or break the code because they want to. And I love it when they stick by the code, even when it's not in their personal best interest, like when Ravus had to release the children because Ivan saved the party, they didn't save themselves. But yeah, I definitely look forward to seeing Ravus be utterly, humiliatingly defeated by the party. Because, the salt. The salt. And yeah, that's about all I got. Thanks for watching.